want you all to imagine feeling like an outsider, whether it's in your community or in a different country. Remember the uncertainty, remember the discomfort, and remember so badly wanting to be accepted. This is the harsh realities faced by ethnic minorities all over the world as we navigate through a society that fails to recognize our worth and potential. I am Bakar Fariha Salma Deiya. 大家好，我叫代雅，我係一位香港出世嘅孟加拉人。Growing up, I had the privilege of not only embracing one, but two unique identities, as a Hong Konger and as a Bangladeshi. When my parents first came to Hong Kong, they didn't have a support system to lean on, and there were a lack of resources. Also, they had a lot of figuring out to do because people were withholding education and schooling information from us. I remember going to a local kindergarten because my neighbors advised me that in order to have a bright future in Hong Kong, I needed to master the local language of Cantonese. Throughout my educational journey in Hong Kong, I studied in designated schools. Designated schools meaning that there was a concentration of ethnic minority students in those schools. As a Bangladeshi, I was not only a minority, but I was also a minority within the minority because there were only so few of us in Hong Kong, let alone in my school. Being in a designated school meant that we were segregated from local Hong Kong students and that we had to study a Chinese as a second language curriculum. In a Chinese as a second language curriculum, it is a watered down and a diluted version of the education system. Despite having the same starting point as local students in life, we were significantly far behind when it came to learning Cantonese. Because for the next 6 years of my primary school life, I was learning things like animal names, numbers, weather, modes of transportation, food items, etc. Since at home, my parents didn't speak Cantonese and I didn't have a Chinese-speaking environment at home, I would always make sure to rush home by 4 p.m. every day to watch the local Chinese cartoons. I would intentionally go to watch the local news at 6:30 p.m. and watch the television shows that aired from 8:30 to 9:30. I remember thinking that my Cantonese was not bad, but then I realized whenever I went to take the minibus, I would be so scared to say Yao Lo, which is why I would always sit until the last station and walk back home. But eventually I realized that I didn't want my life to be like this because I remember what my neighbors said about having better career prospects if I knew how to speak Cantonese. I didn't want to spend the next decade learning Papa, Mama, 1, 2, 3, 4. Before going to high school, I applied for a few local schools and did some interviews. But then I realized local schools weren't well equipped to accommodate students like me. So I ended up again in a designated school. This time, I had the chance to choose either traditional Chinese or Chinese as a second language. I was so tired of not learning anything that I told myself that I refuse to bow down a diluted version of the education system in Hong Kong. Even though I was excelling in Cantonese in primary school, I realized that my Cantonese level was not on par of that with local Hong Kong students. I realized that if I took traditional Chinese curriculum, I would be sitting in the local Hong Kong HKDSE Chinese language exam at the same time with my Chinese local Hong Kong counterparts. So, from passing every Chinese exams with flying colors in primary school to failing every single Chinese exam in secondary school was a struggle for me. Because now I was catching up on the foundations and the basics that I missed in primary school. I was now learning Man Yi Man. I was learning the ancient Chinese and the history of the language, which made it really difficult. At times, I really wanted to give up, but had I given up, I wouldn't have landed the opportunities that I've had today. Eventually, I took the Hong Kong DSE public exam and obtained a level 3, a challenge which is known to many who's taken the exam. Growing up, I had a lot of dreams and aspirations. But most of all, I had a strong desire to be the first in my family to go to university. Studying in a designated school meant that the chance to go into university was very slim because only less than 20% of the students in my school made it. I remember my teachers indicating that pursuing further education was pointless for girls like me because I would end up working in the food and beverage industry or that I would end up getting married really early. I even remember that they dropping hints about how I could only settle for vocational institutions or community college. During my university life, I realized that there weren't a lot of schools, societies, clubs, and activities that were catered towards non-ethnic Chinese-speaking students like me. As a university student in Hong Kong, there's a tradition that is called thought-provoking, which is the 5 things to do in university to have a fulfilling university life, which is to join a society, live in the dorms, pursue romantic relationships, do a part-time job, and study. I really wanted to check all the boxes off for myself. So this is where my advocacy work began. I was elected to be the Student Welfare Secretary of the Students' Union. And this was special to me because I was the only person of color that was represented in this team of where my committee members were all local Chinese. I wanted to be a voice to address the needs and concerns and amplify the voices of ethnic minorities in university at the time. At the same time, I was actively involved in Project Ethnic Minority Empowerment, which is the only student-initiated club that was dedicated to supporting ethnic minority students in the university. We focused on mentorship, advocacy, and networking. Thinking through my time of articulating to university, I realized the struggles that I had. I didn't have role models to look up to from the community. We lacked resources, we lacked support, we lacked encouragement, and we lacked guidance. Therefore, we took it upon ourselves to develop a mentorship scheme where we paired university ethnic minority students with students from ethnic minority designated schools as mentees. In our sessions, we covered educational pathways, career planning, mental health, self-discovery, and most importantly, we invited role models from the community to instill a sense of confidence and inspire them. To our surprise, most of the mentees that we mentored eventually came back as mentors, continuing that cycle of support for the future generations of ethnic minorities to come. During my time in university, I was so actively immersed in advocacy work. We submitted petitions to the government addressing fair education, fair employment, racial segregation, and policy reform. We tried to shed the light on the flaws within the system and the ordinances that exist within our laws. We took our voice to education institutions, policy makers, and even employers to shed light on the issues and push for systemic change. I even made sure to go to public consultations to provide a voice for the voiceless. I realized that when a group of people come together in unity towards a collective goal, we can amplify voices that might otherwise go unheard. And we have been silenced for far too often, and I really wanted to amplify that voice for ethnic minorities in Hong Kong. Football, I'm a huge football fan, and I'm a huge Arsenal fan. Football has taught me so much about diversity and inclusion. I believe football is the embodiment of diversity and inclusion. Let me explain why. First of all, in a football team consists of people from different races, ethnicities, and backgrounds that come together towards a collective success of winning the game. In a football team, people from different race and genders come together and inspire and become role models for other people. And in this, you can see that talent and skill are the defining factors and not your race or your background. Also, when a football fan base come together in unity, create a sense of belonging in community because of a shared passion for the game, irrespective of their differences or ethnicity. Football clubs and organizations also promote anti-discrimination campaigns, speaking against racism, homophobia, and other forms of discrimination. And football players also leverage their social media and influence to advocate for what they feel is right and raise awareness. Last but not the least, they also do community outreach to extend the joy of the game on and off the pitch, extending it towards marginalized communities and underrepresented communities. I think there's a lot to learn from this beautiful game of football because it taught me how to embody the traits of unity, inclusion, and diversity. I remember wishing that I had more resources learning Cantonese while growing up and made an application, a mobile application where students and ethnic minority students can learn Cantonese from the comfort of their own homes. So, Throughout my advocacy journey, I realized that I not only wanted to be a catalyst for meaningful change, I wanted to contribute to the collective narrative as a Hong Konger. I wanted to be a game changer, but most importantly, I wanted to be seen, heard, and celebrated. So, you might ask me, what can I do, or how will I make a difference? It's not about what can you do or how you will make a difference. It's about, are you willing to do it? Diversity and inclusion are always used in unison, but they have distinctions. Diversity is a fact. Inclusion is a choice, okay? Diversity is a reality. Sometimes it's a numbers game. But inclusion is an actual effort to integrating ethnic minorities into society. So let me put that into terms, because diversity is the mix of differences that exist among a group of people, but inclusion is to integrate the mix for the betterment of society, okay? So it's not about what you can do or how can you make a difference. It's about, are you willing to do it? Because advocacy begins with one single step, which is to educating ourselves and to empathize with the experiences of other people. When we come together as a group and we listen to marginalized voices, we engage in open dialogues, we challenge our own prejudice and biases, that's when we can try to transcend that stereotyping and discrimination that exists within our society. Okay, a lot of us have heard the term ethnic minority, or siu so chok yo, as we like to say it in Hong Kong. But I advocate for the term culturally diverse community. Why? Because when we say ethnic minority, we're kind of putting it in a bubble of marginalization, inferiority, otherness. But when we talk about culturally diverse community, we are actually embracing our differences and celebrating diversity, and also celebrating the richness of the heritage of the place that you're coming from. So when we use culturally diverse community instead of ethnic minority, we're actually changing the narrative from one of exclusion to one of celebration. Now, I want to tell you some of my experiences of being raised in Hong Kong. I recall having a job interview on the phone in Cantonese, and they said I was accepted for the position and told me to come in the next day for the contract signing. The moment that I showed up, they said, sorry, but the position is filled. That is when I realized that I did not fit the Hong Kong local Chinese profile that they were looking for. Another incident where I fit all the job requirements, and then they additionally added the criteria of Mandarin on the spot. And when I demonstrated my ability to speak Mandarin, they then proceeded to add even more criteria on the spot. It was also disappointing to hear that my friends faced discrimination while teaching at schools. One was asked to lie about her ethnicity to the parents. Another one was asked to dye her hair a certain way to appear more Caucasian. Another friend of mine had to remove her hijab because the principal claimed that it was scaring the children. So this highlighted the importance of providing respect and dignity for people regardless of their religious beliefs. I remember an instance where I expressed to my teacher that I wanted to apply for a scholarship, and she was like, yeah, sure, but don't expect anything. Though I still went for it, and I kind of did my interview in Cantonese and still landed the scholarship. It was a happy ending, but that dismissive voice still stuck with me for a long time and made me doubt my capabilities and made me want to not express myself as much. So ethnic minorities in Hong Kong face discrimination in many aspects of their lives. When it comes to employment, we're usually overlooked for jobs or offered low-paying positions. When it comes to housing, landlords and agents are reluctant to rent their properties to us. And when it comes to racial profiling, we're more likely to be stopped, searched, and given unwarranted attention. I remember a friend having been searched 4 times in the span of 20 minutes around the same vicinity. Also, when it comes to political representation, we're often not included in the important decision-making processes. Also, when it comes to media representation, a lot of the times we're misrepresented and there's a lot of negative stereotyping online. So, my point today is, though, Hong Kong must not leave ethnic minority youth behind. Discrimination is crippling opportunities and leading to a less diverse and shrinking talent pool. I believe that society should give ethnic minority a chance to flourish, thrive, and contribute back to society. Now today, I don't stand here with all the answers, but I stand here with a vision where diversity is celebrated, opportunities are equal, and everyone feels valued and respected. But we must come together in order to address the harsh realities faced by ethnic minorities. I have been recognized on the diversity list at the age of 19. Today, I'm a master's degree graduate and have spoken in over 500 platforms and appeared in over 100 television shows. And I sit on several government advisory committees. If I can do it, you can do it too. We are the authors of the book of life, and we are in control of the narrative that we want to put out there. We can challenge the divide, and we can challenge the stereotypes that have been put on us. We can challenge to come out of the box the society put us in, and we can challenge the status quo. We can start embracing our legacy. We can start trying to put out examples out there where our future generations to come will be proud to inherit. Thank you for coming to my incredible journey. May you find the courage to embrace your story and make a difference in your life and in the life of others. Thank you.